It's 4 o'clock on a Monday. You know what that means. I've got to bring my volume down because it's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Yeah, fake audience loves it. We love the fake band, and welcome to another Monday and another show. Feel sorry for me because I spent almost 6 hours here yesterday at the office while everybody was out having a good time and playing around, enjoying the weekend. Yours truly was here researching rejection. Yes, today we are going to talk about rejecting rejection. Lord knows it's a big part of all of our lives who are involved in the music business or any of the arts for that matter. So let me get the chat room open so I can say hello to everybody. Usual cast of characters here. Who do I see? Jim Carvalho, Mark Doyle, Rob Spencer, Gloria Covington, Peter Rahill, Mojo Bone, Jesse Peck, Ann House, Adriana, Bubbles, yay! All of the wonderful people that make the chat room so wonderful. If you are watching today's show and you're not participating in the chat room, you really should think for future shows about becoming part of the chat room, because you'll get to know people and you'll meet Rob Spencer, and Waddy. You'll get to know fellow songwriters and composers and people that you can collaborate with and people that you can meet at the Taxi Road Rally, which is coming up in a little over 2 months, November 5th through the 8th in Los Angeles. And it is the best music convention under the sun. 3.5 days of awesomeness with about 100 different industry speakers, panelists, teachers, one-to-one mentors, open mics, 2 open mics Thursday night, 2 open mics Friday night, 2 open mics Saturday night. Just an amazing weekend, and every Taxi member, of course, gets a free ticket to this event and a free guest pass as well. So, yeah, if you're not a member, you may not know this, but you could spend $350 to as much as $1,000 a ticket to go to other conferences that you probably won't find nearly as rewarding or satisfying or as warm and welcoming as you do at the Taxi Road Rally. That wasn't great English, but you know what I mean. The Taxi Road Rally is really warm and welcoming, highly educational, and you will leave there at the end of the weekend knowing stuff that you've been wondering about your entire life and being very, very, very well armed to move your career forward. And hopefully today's show will help you deal with the rejection factor that you're inevitably going to meet along the way. I want to start out today's show by playing a piece of music. A member, you know what, I can't remember. I don't think we mention members' names when we do the one-off song at the top of the show. And this is actually an instrumental piece, and it is an orchestral film trailer. And the gentleman that sends it in has a question, because we say, if you got a question, let us know. So here's a comment I received on a movie trailer piece. I become used to rejection, how apropos, but sometimes find the comments misleading, as I've heard some movie trailers less detailed than this, and some more, of course. Regardless, Taxi members have to have emotional suits of armor to get through the more no's than yeses, all part of the process. Here's the comment on listing number U150706OT. Grandiose, and this was the comment, grandiose and delicate in places, but I feel the piece needs a little more musical variation overall to work for a trailer. If you care to listen, Michael, that's me, my link is, and please choose Under a Blue Moon, which is what this trailer instrumental is. So let me read you the listing, because we're actually going to talk about this one for a minute before we get into the whole rejection thing. And it says, epic orchestral film trailer instrumentals are needed by the owner of a production music library that has a long history of great placements. Please take a listen to the following playlist to get yourself in the high bar stylistic ballpark of what they need. Note that after the first piece plays, other examples on the playlist, shown at the right side of the page, that means the YouTube page, will automatically begin to play. The listing company has asked that you listen to 90 minutes of these trailer examples before you submit. And the link was Phantasm by Audio Machine. Quoting the source, all music you send needs to meet the highest standards for trailer music. I'll be looking at the instrumentation and articulations as well as texture of every orchestral instrument. Please submit mid to up-tempo instrumentals that are structured like a typical film trailer with 3 acts that build as the piece progresses, which is very typical for trailers. In case you've never watched Taxi TV and don't know that, they usually have a beginning and a middle and an end. And the beginning kind of sets it up, the middle establishes more of the plot, and then, of course, the last third of the trailer is almost a call to action. Usually it gets very intense, and that's when I lean over and say to my wife, wow, that looks really good. We got to go see that. So that's what a trailer does in those 3 acts. Your submission should unleash a huge emotional impact with big, memorable strings, powerful brass, and bombastic percussion to create a feeling of intensity on a grand scale. Some non-lyrical vocal elements, such as a choir, can be included. However, please be sure to have a solely instrumental version on hand, as the production company will almost certainly request that if they're interested in your music. They're also open to hybridized rock or electro I can never say that word, stuff that gets played along with it, accompaniment. But your submission should be firmly rooted in orchestral instrumentation. Easy edit points and crescendos that lead to button endings are strongly encouraged. Pieces that crescendo to a button ending followed by a codetta, as often used in trailers, are okay to submit as well. Please do not copy or rip off. The rest of this is all kind of boilerplate stuff. By the way, I didn't even know what a codetta was. I knew what it was, but didn't know what the word was. Have you noticed that a lot of trailers, they have that big, giant crescendo leading to a big bombastic ending, ta-da, and then it kind of trails off. And a lot of times that little trailing off section, which is technically called a codetta, I've been told, served the purpose of flashing some credits up there. The next film by this director or that producer, what have you. So that's what a codetta does. That's what this listing says. And now let us listen to this gentleman's piece called Under a Blue Moon and see. And remember, I wish he'd sent the entire critique, but he's quoting the screener saying grandiose and delicate in places, but I feel the piece needs a little more musical variation overall to work for a trailer. So let's see what we think. Coming this fall. Nothing's coming this fall. My CD player is freaking out. All right, there we go. All right, and there we have it. And once again, that was called Under a Blue Moon. So, why don't you guys cast your votes? I'm curious to see what you think. I mean, clearly it was pretty darn good. I shouldn't have said that, maybe. But let me know what you think. Cast your votes. +1 if you think that it was on target and met the listing requirements and should have been forward. -1 if you think that it wasn't quite where it needed to be to get a forward. Yep, Gareth, it was for a trailer listing. Imagine a bunch of Viking oarsmen. Peter Rahill. I don't even want to ask what the context of. I'm kidding. Uh, Mojo says a lot of +1s. Mojo says gotta agree with the screener. It was good, but a little plotty. PLODDY. Um, it's funny. The early votes were +1s. Now we're getting some -1s. So it's kind of a split decision. Um, Andy Gabrish says from the kitchen, it sounded like it had the form, but never really went nuts in the third act. Um, Mitch Mash says not quite really close. I'm on the fence. Rob Spencer says, um, Heidi Gubbin says, hi, Michael. I'm new to Taxi. Hello, Heidi. Welcome to the show. Glad you're watching. Smart move. Um, There's Scott Hansen. Hey, Scott, I walked by Henry's desk before and he told me you got a placement. Congratulations, buddy. Very happy for you. Um, Waddy JP says, nice piece, but 3 parts didn't seem defined enough. Lucan 26 says, really close. Richard Charles says it was a -1 because it's a high bar listing. Um, nice piece. Gareth says, nice piece, but didn't have the blow me away payoffs. A little long, ending not really defined powerfully, but liked overall feel. All right, so let's call it a split decision. And the one thing that the member quoted in here, which it's tough because I'm not seeing the entire critique, although this was a U listing, so it wasn't a long form critique, but I still like to see the whole thing. I mean, it was well done. It sounded pretty darn good orchestrally. There were a lot of cymbal crashes that I found a little bit like distracting, not horrible, not annoying, but a little like the cymbals sounded kind of thin and psh, 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 over and over. Um, Maybe it needed another type of cymbal. Maybe it needed less of them. Maybe it needed something else, like a taiko drum doing that percussive thing. Anyway, grandiose and delicate in places, but I feel the piece needs a little more musical variation overall to work for a trailer. I would tend to agree. There were some nice dynamics, as this gentleman says, the screener pointed out. Yes, it had some quiet sections, it had bigger, grandiose sections, but it really stayed, and so often listings say stay on one musical theme. This did it to the point of overdoing that. Um, it was just that one string line over and over and over and over and over, and I felt like it needed at some point to have something else musically in it. Now remember, you don't want a lot of times in cues, although this could be a little different for trailers because it's not like a normal TV cue. You don't want to try and score an entire film, right? Because usually they're just taking a regular TV cue or a cue that would be used in a reality show or a dramedy or something, and they're sticking with one theme and one feeling, one emotion throughout a particular scene. Um, Obviously, in a trailer, you start out with the intros I mentioned earlier, and then you establish more of the storyline, and then you really suck the viewers in where it gets big and grandiose and dramatic. Um, it's still, in my estimation, I agree with what the screener says. It needed a little more musical variation. Now, all that said, this was very good. Was it incredibly wonderful? Was it amazing? Not quite amazing, but it was really pretty frickin' good. But they can find pretty frickin' good all day long. What they're looking for, this particular company mentioned high bar, going to be really picky. So we needed to be, the screeners needed to go, holy smokes, this is like one of the better trailer cues that I've heard since I've worked here. They needed to be just blown away by it. And although this was respectfully very, very good, it wasn't amazing. So there you go. Okay, let's get on. And thank you, by the way, for submitting this and opening yourself up to rejection. So today's show title or theme again is Rejecting Rejection. Rejecting Rejection. Lance Armstrong famously said, a boo is a lot louder than a cheer. Now, I contend that a boo and a cheer might actually be the same volume depending on the audience, but we hear the boo more loudly because the boo hurts. It's a form of rejection. It makes us feel unloved. We all want to be loved. My friend Ralph Murphy, who's been on the show a number of times, he speaks every year at the Road Rally, and Ralph is older than the hills, and I mean that in the amount of time that he's worked in the industry. He is the wise old man of the music industry, and he's always saying that songwriters and artists are inherently dysfunctional, which is probably often the case. And I think actors, probably visual artists, and certainly musicians, songwriters, composers, I'm included in this. We all want to be loved. It's all of us, our art, our work, many of the things that we are, that we make, that we do, are ultimately tied to our need to be loved, which is one of the basic human emotions. Wasn't it on Maslow's list of whatever that was called, the basic human emotions or something? And rejection makes us feel unloved. So here's a quote I found online from, I thought it was going to be a French guy, but it was a person, a Dutch gentleman, I believe. Yes, Dutch-born Catholic priest, professor, and writer named Henri Nouwen. And the only reason I can say Henri so well, all of the French people watching the show are falling out of their chairs laughing right now, is because that was my name in Miss Bush's French class freshman year in high school. I was Henri. Over the years, this is his quote, over the years, I've come to realize that the greatest trap in our life is not success, popularity, or power, but self-rejection. Success, popularity, and power can indeed present a great temptation, but their seductive quality often comes from the way they are part of the much larger temptation to self-rejection. When we have come to believe in the voices that call us worthless and unlovable, then success, popularity, and power are easily perceived as attractive solutions, kind of a counterpoint to being unloved. The real trap, however, is self-rejection. As soon as someone accuses me or criticizes me, as soon as I'm rejected, left alone, or abandoned, I find myself thinking, well, that proves once again that I am nobody. He goes on to say, my dark side says, I'm no good. I deserve to be pushed aside, forgotten, rejected, and abandoned. Self-rejection is the greatest enemy of the spiritual life because it contradicts the sacred voice that calls us the beloved. And being the beloved constitutes the core truth of our existence. Thank you, Henri Nouwen. So there you go. He, in a very complicated and maybe a somewhat verbose way, underscored what I said, which is, look, we all want to be, yes, Matt Vanderboe says Maslow's hierarchy. Thank you, Matt. We all want to be loved. We want what we do to be loved, our work product, ourselves, our home. You want people to come over and go, oh, that's a lovely home you have. We want to be loved. If you're going to pursue your dream, though, you're going to have to face rejection. You can't succeed without putting yourself out there. This is me talking, not Henri. So learning to be resilient in the face of rejection is just about as important as having the raw talent to succeed and doing the ridiculously hard work that it takes to succeed. Every time a taxi member pitches his or her music, I think they show tremendous courage because they know they stand a really good chance of being rejected. So same thing at the road rally every year. I'm amazed when I look up and I see people get up in front of 200-300 people in the open mic with nothing more than a ukulele or a guitar or a piano or something and do their song. Even the stuff that's not all that great, which sometimes happens. Sometimes we get amazing stuff. Sometimes we get stuff that's not all that great. But you have to have tremendous admiration and respect for these people that muster the courage to stand not only in front of a room full of essentially strangers, but strangers who are themselves musicians. That's like a supermodel standing up in front of other supermodels wearing, did I eat 3 bites of cottage cheese at lunch and I look fat? I have such respect for those people. And but they do it and they pull it off. And the cool thing is they always get an amazing, rousing round of applause at the end. Let's see, I'm proud of those people. It's people who, it's the people who want to join Taxi and don't, or the members who want to make a submission and don't because they fear rejection. Those are the people that I worry about. Because fearing rejection causes more harm than actually being rejected. Think about that. I'm going to say that again. These are my words, not Henri. Fearing rejection, I believe, causes more harm than actually being rejected. The fear itself will stop you dead in your tracks and can pretty much guarantee that you won't succeed. So yeah, if you have the fear of being rejected and you don't leave the starting line, hell, if you don't even walk up to the starting line, you have no chance of winning the race. Actual rejection actually gives you something better than the fear of rejection. Actual rejection gives you information that you can use to improve, which can help you succeed. And while I'm certainly not a psychologist by any stretch of the imagination, I do know a lot about rejection from personal experience. I've owned Taxi for 23, almost 24 years. And owning a company that is very much in the public spotlight, at least in our little corner of the world, it exposes me to criticism and rejection pretty much on a daily basis. Where am I? People say all kinds of nasty stuff about Taxi online. People say nasty stuff about me personally as well, and sometimes it really hurts. But my natural reflex, as I believe is the same for everybody else, is that you want to defend yourself. Go, no, my company doesn't suck, or I don't suck. We want to defend ourselves to make that criticism go away because we don't want to feel that rejection, because we want to be loved. So over the years, I've learned that when somebody trashes the company by saying something like, Taxi sucks because they charge money to listen to music, they probably don't even know exactly the people who say that don't even know exactly what we do. Oftentimes, I believe they're basing their opinion on the other companies that are out there that kind of imitate what we do, but don't really do it very well, or maybe not all that ethically sometimes. And they assume that we're the same. And because of their own ignorance, they don't know the difference between what Taxi does and what the less desirable companies do, so we get lumped into the same category. And that just blows my mind. That makes me feel rejected because this company is my song or my orchestral piece, and I don't want anybody criticizing it, especially when it comes from a place of ignorance. So over time, I've learned not to feel personally rejected by those comments. The sources of those criticisms aren't valid, and when somebody who actually does know what they're talking about, somebody who is well informed, and somebody who voices a legitimate criticism of Taxi it's actually quite painless for me to get past the hurt, because I see it as an opportunity to learn something. It took me years to figure that out, trust me, because I was always defending, and I will still defend. But, I mean, there are people, I saw Mojo Bone in the chat room today. I think Mojo's incredibly smart, and his opinions are very well reasoned. I call him up sometimes out of the clear blue. I'll call him up and say, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? Or should I do this with the company? Should I do that? And if he tells me something other than what I want to hear, I don't feel it in any way, shape, or form as any sort of rejection. First of all, I reached out to him, so I got to be a big boy and take it, if he tells me what I don't want to hear. But I know that he's thoughtful and intelligent and well-reasoned. So when you consider the context and the source of the so-called rejection, I see, any comments I would get from Mojo or anybody who's well-reasoned and intelligent and thoughtful, you've got to look at that as an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to improve. So get past the hurt, especially when it comes, when the so-called rejection or the thing, the comment, the criticism that's making you feel rejected is coming from somebody who is well-reasoned, well-informed, and intelligent. Man, suck it up and look at that and suck it in, Look at it as a tremendous opportunity to learn and improve. So many of the improvements that we've made at Taxi have been member-generated. Okay, I need to take a sip of sugar-free Rockstar, our sponsor. Refreshing. Many of you who watch the show have heard this name. Many of you are Taxi members have heard this gentleman's name. Steven Pressfield. He's an author of many, many books, very successful author. And two of his kind of self-help books, he also writes novels, but he's very accomplished in writing self-help books. And I believe it was Chuck Schlachter, one of our members, who first turned me on to Steven Pressfield. Two of the books that I've read and that many of our members have read are called The War of Art and Do the Work. Excuse me, there's the famous Rockstar burp right there. And I don't think it's a coincidence that many, many, many of our most successful members have read Steven Pressfield's books, The War of Art and Do the Work. And so when I was here yesterday prepping this show and just reading everything I could about rejection and how to not feel rejected, I came across some quotes from Steven Pressfield's website, and I want to read them to you now. He says, I read a story about Cole Porter when he was writing songs for the movies. Sometimes the producers would shoot him down. He'd play them his newest tune, and they would reject it. They'd kick him out of the office. And I loved his reaction. He said, Cole Porter said, I get 1 million rejections. Cole Porter was a pro. He knew he didn't have just one song, or 10 songs, or even 100 songs, or 110 songs. He had a lifetime supply. By the way, you have a lifetime supply. The gentleman that sent this orchestral piece in today and it didn't get forwarded, I'm sure he felt rejected by the screener not forwarding it. But it's not the only thing he's going to write. He's probably written 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 more since he sent that in. And he, like all of us, has a lifetime supply. And it's a good bet that everything or most of what he's going to write and record in the future is going to get better, especially if he's getting rejected and criticized, if you will, by people who know what they're doing, which the Taxi screeners do. They may not be right 100% of the time, but they're right a lot. We know that from playing stuff. Mojo says, Cole Porter, my man. Yes, sirree. Anyway, the screeners, their opinions are almost always substantiated by the way you guys vote on stuff on the show. So there you go. They've got a pretty darn good batting average, even though I'm sure they're not right 100% of the time. You may not understand them, or you may feel that some of their comments conflict. That's why we've got head screener at taxi.com, so that you can email Andy, our head screener, and say, I don't really understand this, or the screener said this, then contradicted him or herself in the critique. Can you please explain it to me or get to the bottom of it? Andy will go as far as getting the screener to come into his office and go, this doesn't make sense. Explain what you were trying to say. Anyway, getting off track a little bit, but you do have a lifetime supply. So, like I said earlier, the screeners aren't rejecting you. The industry people aren't rejecting you. They're rejecting your work product in the context of that particular listing or opportunity. Whether it's a screener, whether it's a music library owner, whether it's a music supervisor, whether it's an A&R person from a record label, whether it's people at a coffee shop that you're playing for and give you the old, oh, that was nice, tepid applause. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting what you're doing, the output, the creative output. So what? You will have more creative output. So now back to Pressfield's quote. In other words, music wasn't Cole Porter's job, it was his career. It was his calling, it was his love. He was in it for the long haul, come rain, come shine. He was in it for the process, not the product. Makes sense, right? Pressfield's smart. If you haven't read his books called The War of Art and Do the Work, go get them. By the way, we're getting some flickery lights as I'm speaking with you today. It's hot outside. So if I go off the air, it's a power outage. There you go. More good stuff from Mr. Pressfield's website. There's a story about Jed Harris, the great Broadway producer of the 20s, 30s, and 40s. A young journalist, in awe of the producer's many successes, asked him, Mr. Harris, how do you explain the flops? And Harris laughed and he said, that's the wrong question, young man. The question is, how do you explain the hits? Where is the joy in writing or dancing or filmmaking or any art or any entrepreneurial venture? It's not in the praise. It's not in the paycheck. Oh, there's nothing wrong with praise or paychecks. It's in the work itself, the sweat of it and the grind of it, and the happy moments when it gets rolling all by itself. And we all know what that feels like, right? When you're in the zone, it doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, you know it, and the work stands up and stands out after the fact because you're in the zone. So it's in the work itself, the sweat of it, the grind of it, the happy moments when it gets rolling all by itself. Krishna said that that's all we have a right to. And he hit the nail on the head. The joy is private and silent. We'd like it to be more public, but often, or far too often, it's private and silent. So when our next book, and this is still Pressfield speaking, so when our next book, play, or movie, or iPhone app comes out, we want to be working on the next book, the next play, movie, or iPhone app, or better yet, the next one after the next. We want to be a moving target for that sneaky, ego-driven, resistance-spawned part of ourself that pins the hopes on a ride in the glossy limousine. The Lincoln or Cadillac is taking, or that Lincoln or Cadillac is taking us nowhere. The action is here on the sidewalk where we are right now. Okay? And here's some more quotes. These are actual quotes from Pressfield's book, The War of Art. The artist committing himself to his calling has volunteered for hell, whether he knows it or not. He will be dining for the duration on a diet of isolation, rejection, self-doubt, despair, ridicule, contempt, and humiliation. Oh, the humiliation, that feeling of being unloved. Pressfield also says in The War of Art, evolution has programmed us to feel rejection in our guts. So true. This is how the tribe enforced obedience. I'm assuming that he's talking about back in the days of cavemen. Or can we call them cavemen anymore? Do we have to call them cave people now to be politically correct? Evolution, I'm going back to the top of that quote because I got off track. Evolution has programmed us to feel the rejection in our guts. This is how the tribe enforced obedience, by wielding the threat of expulsion. We don't like you. You screwed up. You didn't, kill enough animals, bring home enough meat. Therefore, you're not contributing to our cave community, so we're going to expel you from the tribe. Fear of rejection isn't just psychological, it's biological. It's in our cells. There again, Stephen Pressfield, who is a very wise man. So we are hardwired, says Pressfield, and I absolutely agree with him. Again, not that I'm a genius rocket scientist of a psychologist or anything, but come on. We all know that certain things are hardwired into our psyche, our DNA, fight or flight. Rejection makes you feel unloved. All makes sense. There's another author named Mark McGinnis. A little bio on him. Don't know where that went now, but I'll run into it. Anyway, author Mark McGinnis says, if you want to achieve something original and meaningful with your life, you must learn to deal with rejection and criticism. I'm going to repeat that because it's worth hearing again. If you want to achieve something original and meaningful with your life, you must learn to deal with rejection and criticism. It's part and parcel to putting it out there. If you're an artist of any kind, your work will be rejected by the editors, by curators, and other gatekeepers, like Taxi. Yes, people love to call us gatekeepers because it takes them off the hook. I believe, this is my own personal observation about people calling Taxi gatekeepers, and we are. But you could call us enablers too. We help you get, it's funny, people don't call us gatekeepers when they get through the gate. They only call us gatekeepers when we keep them out of the gate. They should call us enablers that don't always let them through the gate. How's that? Okay, so again, I got off track. If you're an artist of any kind, your work will be rejected by editors, curators, and other gatekeepers. And each time you put it in front of the public, you expose yourself to criticism. He also said in another interview, one of the things I think people really get tangled up in is when they start having a conversation about some kind of idea or a prototype or a book or a painting or whatever. People start coming in and critiquing them. But they're not really clear about what their criteria, meaning the people who are critiquing them, what their criteria are or what their judgment is based on. So this is me speaking now. If you think about it, being rejected when you make a submission to Taxi only means that that piece of work, the song or the instrumental track, is being rejected for that pitch. The screener is making the judgment about that piece of music for a particular pitch, a particular situation or circumstance. They don't know you. They don't know you. They, maybe you met them at a road rally or something, but they don't know you. So they couldn't be criticizing you. I can't say, here's somebody named Flufferputt. Don't know who Flufferpuff is. So how could I possibly be critical of Flufferpuff, the person? If Flufferpuff had submitted a piece of music for the show today, I could critique that. I could reject that. But I wouldn't be rejecting Flufferpuff. That's a tough one, a tongue twister. Flufferpuff, him or herself. Excuse me. People. Okay, so if you think about making a submission Taxi, it only means that that piece of work or song or track is being rejected for that pitch. The screener is making the judgment about that piece of music for that particular situation or circumstance. They don't know you. They're not rejecting you. Just that piece of music for that one instance. Not for all future submissions. It may not be good enough to get over the transom for future submissions, but in the moment, they're only critiquing it for that one instance. So it shouldn't cause you to feel rejection. They're not rejecting you, and they're only rejecting something you made for one pitch. And when you realize that, it allows you to read the comments from the screener and see them as a gift or a tool to help you pitch your music better the next time, right? Because it's coming from a logical, rational, thoughtful, well-qualified person. It's not coming from some dipwad that just, your music sucks. Yeah, that could hurt, but it shouldn't. But, when you're getting somebody like the screener in the case of this gentleman saying that this piece needed more musical variation, go, this person might actually know what they're talking about, because Taxi is pretty darn picky about who they let listen to the members' music around here, and we keep tabs on that by checking their work all the time. So if this person feels that my music needed more musical variation, maybe I should, cool off and think about it, listen to that piece again, and go, wow, they're right. I mean, yes, it does have, it starts out kind of gentle and then gets bigger and then gets even bigger. It's got the dynamics. It's got some pretty darn good use of samples of stuff in there, good, what's the word I'm looking for? A good sense of what orchestration should sound like. So there were many positive things, but I tend to agree with the screener, and I think some of the people watching the show today also agreed with the screener. More musical variation would have been great. So even if they're giving you feedback on the song itself, and not just the pitching aspect, it's a tool to help you make the music better. So let's get back to Mr. McGinnis's quote. He further says, people start coming in and critiquing, but they're not really clear about what their criteria are, what their judgment is based on. In the case of the Taxi screeners, you know that they're qualified experts, and you'll always know the context from which they're critiquing your music, which is very important. So it's not just a general, like, that could be better. It could be better for this if. It could be better for this if you did that, or if you tried something over there, or added an instrument, or the codetta was a little short, or whatever. Now, you might not know this, but Angel Maradiaga, who is the financial person on our staff and does our HR, and she's my right arm, and you've all met her at the Road Rally, and she's wonderful. She takes time every month to go on our forum and we have a section on the forum called the Screener Shoutout section, where members go on there and say, hey, thanks, Screener 178 for forwarding me, or thanks for not forwarding me but giving me a good critique. And she takes that, and every month she pastes them all into a document, and then she sends it out to the screeners, and we post it, or she posts it in the kitchen here at the office. So when the screeners take a break and they go in there and they're drinking a soda or eating some chips or whatever, they can actually read what the members are saying to them, both good, bad, and indifferent. Now, just so you know, don't put stuff up on screener shoutouts where it says, hey, screener number 325, when you said this in my critique, did you mean that? Or can you go back and listen to the song again and elaborate more on that thing you pointed out? Because it will have already been at least a month by the time that stuff gets up there, and that music will have been submitted, screened, forwarded, or returned, and it's like out of the system at that point. But we want the screeners to get feedback from you guys so that they know how they're doing. They want to know, and we post their numbers along with the comments so they know how the members feel about their work. Anyway, she posts that where everybody can see it. And here's some great examples of members seeing the screener's feedback as something helpful and not a form of rejection. This one says, hey, number 386, just want to say a big thanks for your careful listen and very helpful comments on my recent submission for Tango Viejo. In cases like this, a return is just as good as a forward, with an exclamation point. Glad you liked the tune. I'll remix it with your comments in mind, and we'll be glad to have it in better form for the future. Thanks. That's from David Schulman. That is a mature, wonderful attitude. David Schulman gets it. He understands the screener is not rejecting his music. It's not rejecting him. And yes, it's a form of criticism, but it's positive criticism intended to help. And this gentleman, David Schulman, had the wisdom to see it that way, and I have little doubt in my mind that David Schulman, if he's not already a successful member, is soon to become one. And then there's a comment from one member to another member. So the member that this person is addressing was obviously named Paul. Paul, I got returned by the same screener for the same reason, as Paul did, obviously. I'm telling you, this screener's comments on your return and mine are on point. I think this is the most enlightening return comment I've ever received. I think I used the same contact library, Kontakt. It's a brand of samples. Use the same contact library you did. Screener 381 did a bang up job of getting to the point bluntly and eloquently. Michael needs to give them a big slap on the back. I'm using the screener's comments to keep in mind that I've got to use my contact stuff in a supporting role instead of featuring it. Thanks again. That's from Russell Landwehr. I think Russell is in the house tonight. Anyway, again, an incredibly mature way to look at the feedback. Not as a criticism of himself, Russell, not as a hurtful, malicious criticism of his work, but a positive criticism intended to help him get that much better. Here's one more. A couple more. I did receive a return for my song Sunday Afternoon, and I'd like to thank you for the positive explanation of why it was returned. Thanks. And that's from Ron K. Schultz. And then here's another one for screener number 347. Thank you for your critique of making it real, making it right. That was one of the best rejections, and they actually, I think, put the word rejections. I can't remember if I did that or they did, but it's in italics. It's one of the best rejections I've ever received, with a smiley face. I will redo and remix Oh, the Learning Curve in parentheses there. Anyway, I wondered, would your comments be the same if I submitted it to the contemporary Christian genre? Thanks again. I'll keep working at this. And that was from Deb McCall. Again, a really, really fruitful and mature response, saying that it wasn't criticizing her, it wasn't criticizing the music, it was annotating stuff that could be made better. So here's some more thoughts from Mr. McGinnis, and I think I need to pick up my pace. I was reading Fiona Simpson writing about modern poetry, and she says, very often we confuse taste and merit. She's talking about poetry, but it applies to a lot of things. Something can be very well written and very accomplished in the field of poetry, but it's not like, but if it's not the kind that we like, then we dismiss it and say it's no good. One of the things I suggest is, say you present something and you're in a live dialogue, or this can even happen in an email or other communication, and somebody comes in and they say, I don't like it. Now, immediately, the natural response is to defend it, or to get hurt and withdraw. That's part of rejection I haven't spoken about yet. Or even, we've all been in situations where it's escalated into an argument. But what I suggest you do is just try and say, well, okay, what is it specifically that you don't like about it? And try to get some sense of what their criteria are. Can you give me an example of something you particularly don't like? And maybe even a counterexample of something that you think would work better. That's exactly what our screeners do. So that I think that this gentleman, Mr. McGinnis, does a really good job of showing the comparison between somebody just trashing you because they're a troll online and going, ew, your music sucks, dude. That shouldn't hurt because the person's a dweeb, just doesn't matter what they think. And if it's somebody that actually does know what they're talking about, it could be that it just doesn't line up with their taste. In the case of our screeners, they don't listen to music and judge with their own taste. They have to sit down. Every time they listen to your music, they're listening to it in terms of the context of what that company or that person, that music supervisor, A&R person needs. So they're not listening going, wow, I think this is really great. I mean, there's sometimes that they love a piece of music that they don't forward because it's just not what the listing asked for. Sometimes they may forward stuff. I'm pretty sure pretty often they forward stuff that they may not personally like, but they can't deny the fact that it fits what the listing is asking for. So, if you put your heart and soul into it, he continues to say, it will hurt. And I say in the book, his book, meaning Mr. McGinnis's book, actually to a certain point, that it's supposed to hurt. Because if it doesn't, you've stopped caring. And that goes back to the love, feeling the love or the lack of love, or feeling unloved. If you don't care, if you're loved or unloved, then you might want to go see a psychologist. However, you need to be able to find a way of managing that in the context while you're getting feedback. So let me think about that one again. However, you need to be able to find a way of managing, whether you care or not, in the context while you're getting the feedback. Overcoming the fear of, this is me talking now. I think I'm done quoting both Mr. Pressfield and Mr. McGinnis. Thank you, gentlemen. Overcoming the fear of rejection and rejection itself really comes down to this, in my opinion. If the fear of rejection is stopping you from pursuing your goals, then think of this. What's the worst thing that could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen? A song gets rejected. So what? It doesn't mean that you suck or everything you will do is going to suck for the rest of your life by any stretch of the imagination. You're going to get better nearly every time you write another song or instrumental. And getting the qualified feedback that comes with the rejection is likely to help you get better. And if you do get rejected, again, so what? Again, it's not you that was rejected. Nobody's telling you they don't like you. They either thought the piece of music wasn't right for the pitch or it wasn't ready for prime time. In either case, so what? Wouldn't you rather take the shot and know that it didn't work or wasn't good enough, or what you can do to improve it and increase your chances next time? That's a gift. Wouldn't you rather take the shot and know that it didn't work or wasn't good enough, and what you can do to improve and increase your chances next time? Who wouldn't want to know that? And if you read a critique from a screener and you get angry or you feel rejected by it, and it's hard to turn that feeling off, which I'm sure it is, believe me, there are plenty of nights I've gone to bed with steam coming out of my ears because I made the mistake of opening my laptop at 11:30 at night and reading some stupid comment about Taxi that was completely and utterly unfounded from somebody who was obviously completely unknowledgeable about what we do, how we do it, how well we do it. They're a troll. They're the kind of people that have 3 beers too many late at night and post something stupid online. Where the hell was I? So if you read something from a screener, you get angry, feel rejected, then just put it away. Put it away. Back when we used to do all of our critiques with pencil and paper, I remember some of our better members used to tell me, oh yeah, when I get a critique I don't like, I crumple it up, I throw it away, and then 5 minutes later I walk back in the room, pull it out of the garbage, straighten it out, fold it up, and I put it in a drawer or a file. And then a week or two later, once I've cooled down, I go look at it again, and somehow magically words leap off the page and make sense to me. And I go, those guys at Taxi aren't such idiots after all. There were a couple of good points in there. God forbid they say there were a lot of good points, but they will always say there are a couple of good points in there. That's okay. We'll take 1 or 2. So there you go. The passage of time gives you a new and usually better perspective with which your ears and your mind, your heart, your soul, your psyche, your entire existence is prepared to see that critique as a helpful tool and a gift that can move you forward versus a form of rejection. So there you go, folks. I am done. I am now officially climbing off the soapbox. Yay, I got that show done in less than an hour. And now I want to hear your thoughts or your ideas or your experiences, any advice you can give to your fellow members watching this, whether they're in the chat room or I have to read them back later. I want to hear how you guys deal with rejection. So there you go. Lay it on me. I am waiting. Polly says, the doctor told me I had 6 months to live. I told him I couldn't pay the bill for a year, so he gave me 6 more months. Now, that was funny. Magic Eraser says, when I get a no, I just crack open a cold one, then write another tune. Thanks, Michael. Russell Landwehr says, when I get returns I have a really big problem with, I take it to the taxi forums, and the forum members set me straight, and I get my crap fixed. There you go. Oh, you know what? I should have mentioned that. Anytime you get a critique and you think the screener is completely out of their mind, go to the peer-to-peer section on our forum at forums.taxi.com and put it up there for your fellow members and see if they agree with the screeners. More often than not, you're going to find they usually are. New to Texas, use the critiques. They're usually 90% spot on. I agree with that number. Mojo Bone says, if you're going to be a duck, you need to have a watertight sphincter. Oh, man, the comments are rolling in quickly. Bubbles says, well, it hurts, but as you say, it's nothing personal about you. Mojo says the forum's a great place for reality check. Don't get. Rob Spencer says, don't get attached to your material. Follow the write, submit, forget, and repeat mantra, which, thanks to Mr. Stephen Giles, a taxi member who made these and handed them out at the Red Rally a couple of years ago. There you go. Write, submit, forget, repeat. Polly says the peer-to-peer section of Taxi Forum is the best tool on the internet. I agree with you. I've heard that from thousands of people over the years. Jesse says, Rejection? I just drink on it and I'm okay in the morning. Metri Steve says, you have my permission to critique my song next week and give me the hurt. An observation, sometimes not hearing anything after a forward can feel like rejection. But you're notified of the forward, right? So at least you got that going for you. We do encourage, by the way, we do tell the screeners, even when you forward something, whoops, things are coming in so fast I can't keep up. We do tell the screeners, we just brought this up very recently, as a matter of fact, like a week or two ago. We tell the screeners that when they forward, the members say, I really like this because, and I forwarded it, or I forwarded it because I think you guys deserve that. But they're usually so excited, they're like, dude, this is a forward, and that's about all you get. Magic Eraser says, I got to start using the forums, but I've got 4 kids. As I think Russell Landwehr recently said, isn't it funny how people find plenty of time to use Facebook and Twitter and they don't use the taxi forums? The taxi forums are a gold mine. They are a free gold mine. You know what? Give a couple of those kids away. Give them to your in-laws. Give them movie tickets. Get them out of the house for 3 hours. There you go. Spend that time in the forum. One must separate their personal emotions from the songs. They're just songs. I agree. Rejections don't bother me. I just get more fuel to get better. That's from the Element Studio. Oh my gosh, this thing is just whizzing by right now. Gareth Ebb says, I don't think much about returns at all. To be honest, I'm a sensitive dude. I just get on with it. I copy and paste the good stuff from the critique for technical stuff for remixes. There you go. Adriana says, keep a Word document, the song title and screener feedback in that song. Many times I see a common theme and I've submitted it multiple times, if I've submitted it multiple times. It's great to go back and make songs better. Absolutely. That common thread thing, that is pure gold. Trying to read fast enough. Prince says, D loves you. I really want to submit to Taxi TV, but I have to post it at 4:30 in the morning in order for you to see it. I'm sorry. Paulie says, I was a music major. Rejection was a daily occurrence. It builds character. If you've competed at any level in anything, you have to learn to deal with criticism or you give up. Gareth Ebb says same thing Adriana does, which is keeping stuff on Google Drive, all the technical, lyrical stuff, and addresses the feedback later. Scott Hansen says, when I get rejected, I just pretend the criticism is coming from my wife and I don't pay attention. Dear God. Oh, my goodness. Matt Vanderbilt says, my advice for those just getting started, write a ton of material. If you haven't read the interview with Matt in the Taxi Transmitter newsletter that came out like 2 months ago, go back and read it. I think it probably came out in like March, April, May, somewhere around there. His interview was great, tons of great advice. So Matt says, my advice for those just getting started, write a ton of material. If you've just got a few songs in play, you'll be more apt to be hurt by the rejections because all of your eggs are in one basket. Really good observation. So write more and more. Every song, cue, etc. will get better, will be better than the previous. You are so, so smart, Matt, and so right on. Mojo says, I've gotten so much more done since I quit Facebook. Hallelujah. My wife has been anti-Facebook and Twitter for years. Like, kids, what are you doing? Why do you always have your face, buried in your phone, blah, blah, blah. And then she got Facebook, I don't know, 6 months ago. Every morning, what does she do? Wakes up. Of course, I pull my laptop out from under the bed. My wife pulls her cell phone out, and she's looking at Facebook every morning. Now, admittedly, our daughter Hannah is living overseas, and she keeps in touch with her that way. But still, honey, lose the Facebook. That sounds like something Soupy Sales would say, Michael. I don't know what you're talking about, Mark, but I'll take that as a compliment because as a kid, I loved Soupy Sales. Michael Mission says, write a ton of material because you have to write a bunch of crap to get to the good stuff. Yep. Bubbles says, I'm funny, not just funny looking. My Facebook time is down 95%, says Polly, replaced by taxi form and music writing. Yay, good for you. I'm telling you, is Facebook, I mean, there's no question that there's an attraction to it. It's interesting to see what your friends are up to and see pictures of them at weddings and what have you. But, if you're part of a Facebook group about songwriting or something, then it could be beneficial. But if you're just checking out what the Kardashians are doing, not so much. Michael, the only issue I have with returns is when I perceive that something forwarded sounds lesser in quality musically or sonically than my own submittal. So comparison of forwards versus rejections can sometimes lead to angst. I understand that. There's a section on the forums called forwards, and people who get music forwarded sometimes post their stuff there. And I've always wondered if people go on there, if other members go on and go, man, my stuff was better than that. But you really have to go back and read the listing so that you're working within the context of that listing, that particular thing, that challenge, if you will, and read the listing and listen to their music, then reread the listing and listen to your music. Yours may be better composed, maybe better recorded, better produced, better a lot of things, but theirs might have been 10% less good, but 50% more on the money for what the show needed. So consider that. Oh, man. A lot of stuff pouring in here. Oh, it's a good question, Michael. When you were working on creating Taxi and you were bouncing the idea off your friends, did any of their feedback feel like rejection? I'm sure, it was like almost 25 years ago now, so I don't remember exactly a lot of that stuff. But I do remember the first time I had the idea, I invited, I think, 4 friends over. I want to say for a football game, and at halftime I ordered some pizza, and I said, hey guys, I've got this really, really great idea. Or maybe, you know what, no, I think I took my potential initial investors out to dinner at McDonald's or something, or at a Red Robin, and bounced the idea off of them. But when I sat down with 4 A&R guys and publishers and told them about my idea, their reaction was, do you think we really want a ton of music coming into us via the internet? Is that what you think? We don't want to hear all that music. We only want to hear the good stuff that comes from a trusted source. And just like shooting from the hip, I immediately said, well, what about if I had out of work A&R people pre-screening it for you? And they all sat there dumbfounded because they couldn't come up with a reason why that wouldn't work. I will never forget. They were like, hear no evil, see no evil, do no evil. Like, four monkeys sitting on a log. And they were all like trying so hard to come up with a way to shoot it down, and they couldn't. And that was the exact moment, I will never forget that I thought, all right, the filter is the important thing. It's not just getting the music from point A to point B, it's getting the really good music from point A to point B that matters. And that's when we came up with I came up with, if I can take they came up with the idea, whether they realized it or not, the idea of using screeners. Michael Mission says, I'm in two local songwriting groups. I can't tell you how many guests we've had over the years who couldn't take an ounce of constructive criticism. Yep, those are the same people that join Taxi, send in the same song 5 times, don't get it forward, and then go all over the internet telling everybody how Taxi sucks. I know those people very well. Ann House, hi Ann, says, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. That's how I see it. Polly says, that's what Kelly Clarkson said. Dolaman says, really great feedback here. We all need thicker skin because writing hit songs is not easy. Okay, I've got to scroll down. I've got so many comments that I can't keep up with here, so I'm scrolling down. Michael, I view the listings this. Every return is a learning opportunity. I recognize Taxi's reputation is on the line with every forward. It is. And frankly, the reason we care so much about Taxi's reputation is if we don't keep our reputation up, we don't get the good listings for you. Of course, we could do what other people do, which is steal them from ourselves or make them up. How does one start a songwriting group? I don't know. Good question, Scott. And congratulations again on getting that placement, man. Polly's got a lot of good comments tonight. I have to admit, I read some of those lame anti-taxi posts a couple of years ago. They dissuaded me. So glad I joined this year. See that? You just can't trust those people. You got to consider the context and who is making those comments, right? Anyway, a couple more and then I'm going to call it a night because I got a little bit of work to do before I bug out tonight. Bob Lagrasso said, I think that's why I've had success is because of the rejection. Mojo says, in the studio, you can start with an undeniable hit song, and every opportunity after that is a chance to screw it up. The rally is coming in fast. I can't believe it's just a little bit more than 2 months away. It's starting to scare the crap out of me. I have the list of panels done with the exception of one, and I'm so upset. I want to do one on Sunday morning analyzing music library contracts where you guys actually print out and bring in clauses that you want to understand better from music library contracts. And I so badly wanted Steve, oh gosh, I can't believe I can't remember his name. It's just on a show a couple of months ago. Steve Winogradsky. Who's a music attorney and has owned a music library. And I wanted him just to sit there with me and go through these things. He's going to be in Austin that weekend. So I've got to find another. I said to Steve, can you recommend another music attorney that knows production music library contracts? And he goes, I'll get back to you by this afternoon if I can think of one. And I haven't, and that's been like 3 days ago and I haven't heard. So I hope that panel doesn't go away because I really think that's needed. Um, 67 days. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for reminding me. I am excited to see you guys. This year forced me to sit down on like Friday or Saturday night in the bar and have a drink. By the way, I do have confirmation that a gentleman who I just think the world of, he's one of you guys, but he really is. He's just like the nicest guy. He's super smart. And knows advertising music, and he's confirmed that he's coming down for the weekend. He's going to do the music supervisor panel because he does supervise commercials. He's also a composer. He runs this exceedingly good company in Portland. I'm probably getting him to do one-to-ones, and I'm also going to do a one-on-one interview with him about music for advertising at the rally. And I've also confirmed a music supervisor who I've really come to admire and respect is going to join me. We haven't completely ironed out all the details, but I think that we're going to give you guys a brief before the road rally and have you submit your music. We'll have the screeners eliminate the stuff that is obviously not good enough and obviously not on target enough. And then we're going to have this music supervisor play it against picture from the scene and have him comment live in the ballroom. Any EDM classes? Honestly, I don't know yet, but I wouldn't be surprised. One thing we're doing differently this year that I'm very excited about is rather than doing an A&R panel in the Grand Ballroom this year, we're going to have like a country listening session, an urban music listening session, a jazz room. We're taking the ballroom upstairs where the open mic is at night that seats, I don't know, probably about 300 people or so with the tables set up in the room. And we're going to do live music listening sessions in that room for specific genres because I know in the past people have been really frustrated about we've got 4 or 5 or 6 panelists up there and we've got 800 or 1,000 people in the ballroom and we don't get to listen to enough stuff. So we're busting it out into very large breakouts this year. All right, 1 more minute to go. I'm afraid to announce the advertising guy's name, although I'm going to have to at some point. But I'm telling you, I am still so incredibly gun shy after having the music library on a few weeks ago, music library owner on a few weeks ago. Frankly, I don't know if I'll ever have another guest from a library or record label on the show. That poor guy was bombarded. Even though I asked everybody at the top of the show, please don't send music to this guy. He told me before he even got back to the office, it started piling up. I don't know what to say, but he got a lot. He said something like millions of pieces of music. I'm sure it was a little bit of an exaggeration. But it's embarrassing, you know. It's like I asked you guys not to do it, and that was kind of like a condition for him being on the show. And then you guys it gives all taxi members a bad name when 100 or 200 people just go, here you go, dude. I don't give a crap what Lasco says. I'm submitting my music because I'm special. I'm more important than all the other people. No, you're not. I know, Paulie, I can't believe people did that either, but yet I can believe it. All right. Guys, thank you so much for paying attention. I hope you got something out of this. I spent a lot of time. I think I learned a lot about rejection, and I hope you guys did as well. So we will see you next week for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.